Have you ever felt betrayed by the very people you've given your all to? Imagine living a life where, after dedicating decades of your time, energy, and heart to building a life for your loved ones, they turn their backs on you just when you need them the most. After a lifetime of sacrifices, you find yourself alone, abandoned by those who you thought would always be there. It's a painful reality many seniors are forced to face, one that is often endured in silence. In today's video, we're delving into a powerful story that may resonate deeply with some of you. This is a story about betrayal, abandonment, and the harsh reality of family dynamics as we age. But it is also a story of personal growth, strength, and self-reliance. It teaches us the importance of setting boundaries when those we love fail to show up for us in our time of need. As much as we may long for support, we must sometimes find the courage to rely on ourselves, because sometimes the people we've invested so much into can't be counted on. By sticking with us until the end, you'll uncover the emotional struggles many seniors face as they navigate their later years. You'll learn valuable lessons on how to avoid falling into the same traps. Discover why maintaining financial independence is crucial, and why emotional resilience can be your greatest asset as you age. This video isn't just about surviving. It's about thriving. It's about knowing how to protect your peace and create a life full of fulfillment, even when support from others is lacking. If you're not already subscribed, I encourage you to do so and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another video. Your support means the world to me, and if you found this video meaningful, don't forget to like and share it with others. Together, we can help spread these important messages. If you find the subject matter of this video compelling, please leave a comment with a 1. If not, feel free to comment 0 and share what topics you would like me to dive deeper into. Your feedback is invaluable in helping me improve and create videos that truly resonate with you. Now, let's get started. After graduating from college, Emily and I started looking ahead and making plans for our future. We had always known we wanted children, but we both agreed that it would be best to wait until our careers were stable and our finances were secure. In the early years of our marriage, life was a whirlwind of work, late nights at the office, business trips, and juggling school for further certifications. We were ambitious and determined, and despite the long hours, we knew this was the path to building a solid foundation for the life we dreamed of. We were driven. But after years of hard work, it started to pay off. 10 years after graduating, we had finally created a life we could be proud of, a cozy home, a reliable car, and a sense of accomplishment. At that point, we were thoroughly enjoying our life as a couple, and we had no interest in adding anyone to the mix, including children. Our home was our sanctuary, and we didn't want anything disrupting that peace. There were days when we didn't feel like going out. On those days, we stayed in. If we wanted to sleep in, we did. If we didn't feel like cooking, we would go out to eat, or even grab takeout. We went on spontaneous trips whenever we felt like it. No schedules, no obligations, just the freedom to enjoy life without any of the responsibilities that come with raising children. It was blissful. But as we entered our 30s, both of our parents started pushing us to think about starting a family. They were worried about what would happen when we grew older, and they urged us not to wait too long. Yet, we had made a conscious decision to enjoy a few more years of freedom. We both agreed that after all those years of sacrifices to build our careers, we deserved to enjoy a bit of peace before jumping into the world of parenthood. Most of our peers had children by this time, but we often saw them struggle. Their lives were filled with stress, working long hours, taking care of sick kids, and sacrificing their sleep just to get through the day. That was not the kind of life we wanted. We didn't want to trade our cherished lifestyle for the chaos and stress of raising children, at least not yet. But then one day, everything changed. When John came home from work that evening, he seemed unusually quiet. I asked him if he was okay, and at first, he didn't say much. He just sat on the couch, staring off into space, looking drained. I thought he might be coming down with something, but the real reason was far more complex. He told me that he had run into an old friend from his college days, a woman named Lisa who had once been incredibly successful in her career. When they spoke, he couldn't help but notice how different she looked. She seemed years older than she had been just a few years ago. She had the weary look of someone who had been through a lot, and her face showed the wear and tear of time in ways I had never expected. After catching up, John learned that Lisa had become pregnant not long after we graduated. She had left her job to raise the child, but when she returned to work, her position had already been filled. She had to start from scratch in a much lower position. Even worse, she was often expected to work overtime, all while caring for a sick child, without any time off. Her parents, who helped as much as they could, were burning out, and it all took a toll on her. Eventually, she had to quit her job entirely to stay home and care for her child full-time, watching her career and self-worth slip away. This conversation weighed heavily on both of us. I could feel the fear and concern in John's voice as he recounted Lisa's story. I, too, began to fear what the future would look like if we decided to have children. I had always valued my career, and the thought of giving it all up, watching my opportunities slip away as I struggled with the overwhelming responsibilities of parenting, terrified me. I realized then that raising children might not be as fulfilling as I had once imagined. Instead, it could easily lead to exhaustion, frustration, and even depression, just like Lisa's life had turned out to be. John and I shared our worries late into the night. He feared the physical toll it would take on his body, and I feared the loss of my career and the personal identity I had worked so hard to build. We were both overwhelmed with the idea that having children might rob us of the freedom and happiness we had fought so hard for. It was then that we made the difficult decision to live child-free. Our choice wasn't easy, especially with the constant pressure from our parents. They argued that when we were older, we would have no one to take care of us. They feared that, without children, we'd be alone in our later years, without anyone to rely on. But we had done our research, and we were determined to stick to our decision. We learned that having children didn't always guarantee support in old age. Many people with children still end up living alone or facing abandonment later in life. We believed that as long as we had good health, a stable pension, and enough savings, we would be fine. And if the worst came to pass, we could always consider a nursing home. Our decision was final. We didn't want to adopt, either. Whether adopting an infant or an older child came with its own set of uncertainties and risks. So we moved forward with our plans, pouring our energy into our careers, saving for our retirement, and prioritizing our health and happiness. We spent our free time enjoying the activities that made us happy, such as traveling, exercising, and spending quality time together. And while our friends were raising children, we relished our freedom. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. I had always believed that giving up a career I loved just to have children would be unacceptable. The thought of losing the professional identity and fulfillment I had worked so hard to achieve was terrifying. I had seen it happen to others. People like my friend Lisa, whose life had completely changed after she became a mother. Her experience made us even more wary about starting a family. Watching her give up so much of herself made me realize that the cost of children could be higher than I was willing to pay. I didn't want to risk falling into the same depression she had experienced, feeling trapped by the responsibilities of parenting while sacrificing my happiness. John and I shared our deepest fears openly. He was afraid of the physical pain and emotional changes that come with fatherhood, and I feared the loss of my career and my sense of self-worth. Neither of us wanted to give up the life we had built together. The freedom, the autonomy, the sense of achievement. So, we decided to live child-free. It was a choice that brought us peace, even though we knew it might be difficult for others to understand. Our decision was met with strong resistance from both of our parents. They were concerned that when we grew older, we would have no one to care for us or handle the responsibilities that come with aging, like funeral arrangements. They insisted that we rethink our decision, but we had already done the research. We found that relying on children for care in old age was no longer a reliable solution. Many people with children still end up living alone in their later years, with their children too busy or distant to offer support. Having children didn't guarantee security or comfort in old age. Our viewpoint was simple. As long as we had our health, a stable pension, and enough savings, we believed we could live comfortably in our later years. If we couldn't care for ourselves, we would have options, such as moving into a nursing home. It wasn't ideal, but it was a solution. We knew that we were in charge of our fate, and we weren't willing to make such a life-altering decision based solely on fear of the future. Our parents suggested that we adopt a child to ensure we had someone to take care of us when we died, but we didn't feel comfortable with that idea either. Whether adopting a young child or an older one, it seemed like it came with its own set of challenges and emotional risks. We politely declined and remained firm in our decision to live child-free. While many of our friends were busy raising children, we focused on saving for our retirement. We spent our time exercising, reading, and maintaining our mental and physical health, knowing that good health was the key to self-sufficiency. We didn't feel that children were necessary for happiness or fulfillment in later life. We were confident that the life we had chosen was the right one for us. Everything seemed to be falling into place. Our plan was working. We retired early and had more time to enjoy our lives, pursuing hobbies like crafting, gardening, and spending time with our pets. We even volunteered at a local senior center, offering help and companionship to those who were alone, especially those without families. At first, we felt proud of our decision. We believed we had made the right choice, and we were able to enjoy our retirement in peace, free from the worries and struggles of raising children. But then, 2 years ago, my life took an unexpected turn. Emily suddenly passed away. Her death was a shock. It was completely out of the blue, and I found myself empty and lost. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I had never imagined this would happen. We had planned for so much, and yet, I found myself facing the harsh reality of life without her. All the freedoms we had enjoyed together now felt meaningless in the face of this immense loss. For the first time, I truly understood the vulnerability of being alone. Since Emily's passing, the house became eerily quiet. The laughter, the chatter, the warmth we had shared, gone. I had always enjoyed my solitude and even relished it in some ways. I appreciated the peace, the quiet of my own company, and the ability to do things on my schedule. But now, the silence felt suffocating. I couldn't stand being alone all day. I had no one to talk to, no one to share the little moments with. I found myself inventing reasons to go outside, anything to avoid the emptiness that crept in around me. One day, while out for a walk to clear my head, I ended up injuring myself. I twisted my ankle badly, and the pain landed me in the hospital for a few days. Lying in that sterile hospital bed, I felt the loneliness and helplessness in a way I never had before. The whole experience made me painfully aware of my vulnerability. Each day, I watched as other patients had family members visit them. Children, grandchildren, and siblings. Their rooms were filled with warmth, laughter, and the comfort of knowing someone cared. Meanwhile, I lay there, alone, no visitors, no family, nothing. It hit me harder than I expected. I found myself envious of those whose families came to visit them. They had a support system, a network of people who cared and who could help when needed. I was left in the silence of my thoughts, wishing things were different. Once I was discharged, I realized that I couldn't keep living like this. The loneliness was consuming me, and I needed to do something about it. I began thinking seriously about my future. What would happen when I needed help? When I was older and no longer able to take care of myself? It became clear to me that a nursing home might be the only option. I didn't want to wait until I was too frail to make the choice myself, so I decided to move into a well-known nursing home. At first, everything seemed fine. The facilities were decent, the staff appeared friendly enough. But as time went on, I began to feel uncomfortable. I quickly noticed a pattern. The residents who had regular family visits were treated with much more care and respect. They had someone to speak up for them, someone to make sure their needs were met. On the other hand, those of us who didn't have family visiting, people like me, were neglected. Sometimes, I was even scolded by the staff for asking for basic assistance. It was clear they felt there was no one to hold them accountable, no one to stand up for us. The realization sent a chill through me. I couldn't stay in a place where I was treated so poorly simply because I didn't have children to visit. After 2 months, I decided to leave. I packed my things and returned home, but the experience made me rethink everything about my life. I had always believed that living child-free was the right choice, but now I wasn't so sure. It wasn't just about care in old age, it was about emotional support. Having children meant having someone to rely on, someone who would stand by you, no matter what. Some people argue that having children doesn't guarantee you'll be taken care of when you're older, and maybe that's true. But living without children feels like a constant reminder of how alone you are. I didn't think I needed children when I was younger. I was focused on enjoying my freedom and living life on my terms. But now, I see that there's a trade-off. The hardships of raising children may seem daunting, but those same children can become your support system in later life. Looking back, I realize my decision to forego parenthood was naive. The saying, "Suffer first, enjoy later," has never felt more true. In my pursuit of freedom and self-fulfillment, I ignored the very real possibility that growing older without children would lead to a life of loneliness and regret. The freedom I once cherished has turned into an isolation I didn't foresee. Now, in my later years, I understand the value of family more than ever. I want to urge young people to get married when the time feels right and to have children when they can. Life naturally leads us to these milestones, and it's important to recognize the value of following them. Having children is not just about creating a family, it's about securing a future with emotional support, love, and connection. These things are essential for a fulfilling life. Looking back at my journey, I can see now how critical these decisions are for building a solid foundation for later years. In the next part of this video, I'll share the story of a 75-year-old man living off his savings in his later years. On the surface, his life appears to be comfortable, but beneath the surface, there are challenges many might not expect. Many people believe that if a senior has enough savings, they will enjoy a worry-free old age. They assume they won't have to worry about basic needs like food, transportation, or paying bills. The idea is that with a healthy nest egg, life becomes simple and easy. Having savings in old age indeed improves living conditions, but does it truly guarantee comfort and happiness? The answer to that question is far more complicated. Let me introduce you to Mr. Charles Turner, a 75-year-old man who has spent much of his life working hard to ensure financial stability in his later years. Charles has a pension that covers his monthly expenses, he owns a small home, and he saved diligently throughout his life. On paper, Charles seems to have everything he needs for a comfortable retirement. He should be able to relax and enjoy his golden years. But the reality, as he's come to realize, is far different. My name is Charles Turner, and I'm 75 years old. I receive a modest pension each month, enough to cover my basic needs, and I own a small home. I thought that after retirement, life would be simple. I thought I would finally have the time to rest, enjoy hobbies, and spend time with my children and grandchildren. Several years ago, I was even compensated for the sale of my parents' old house, an amount that should have given me a little cushion for my retirement. It seemed like I was set for a peaceful, secure life. But instead, I found that living on my savings has been more challenging than I ever expected. You would think that with a home and savings, I'd be able to breathe easily, but the truth is, my old age has been full of struggle. Some days, It feels as though my life is more suffocating than it ever was. Sometimes I look at elderly people living on the streets, scavenging for food, and I can't help but think they have it easier than I do. At least they have the companionship of others in their situation. The loneliness I experience is more overwhelming than I could have ever imagined. When I think about it, I find myself shedding tears, wishing things could have been different. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. My life hadn't been bad, not by any means. But one event changed everything and brought me to the point where I am today. 30 years ago, my wife passed away. We had been married for over 30 years, and her death was a blow I never truly recovered from. After her passing, I chose not to remarry. I didn't want to start over, and truthfully, I was never good at being alone. I did my best to raise our 2 children, but looking back, I can't say I did a perfect job. I was just doing what I thought was best at the time. 15 years ago, I officially retired at the age of 60. I thought I would have more time to enjoy life, maybe travel, or take up new hobbies. But retirement brought new challenges. Even after I stopped working, I chose to live alone. Perhaps it was because I had grown used to solitude, but more likely it was because I found it too difficult to live any other way. In the beginning, I was fortunate enough that my 2 children would come visit me regularly. They'd help me clean the house and cook meals, and we'd sit down to share a meal. It was a warm, joyful time. I had the pleasure of watching them grow and build their own families. Those moments, when they came around to visit, filled me with love and hope for the future. For a time, I felt at peace, thinking that things would only get better. But about 10 years ago, everything changed. I was at home, preparing lunch, when suddenly I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. My entire body ached, and it felt as though I couldn't hold on much longer. The pain was overwhelming, and I could barely stay on my feet. It was all I could do to stay conscious. Desperate, I forced myself to get up and knock on my neighbor's door. Thankfully, their son was home. Without hesitation, he took me to the hospital, where the doctors ran some tests. The results were alarming. I needed immediate surgery. The cost was $10,000, but at the time, I only had $3,200 saved up. I was short nearly $6,800. At that moment, I reached out to my 2 children, thinking that after everything I had done for them over the years, they would help me cover the cost. But to my shock and disappointment, they both refused. My son explained that he had a lot of debts and couldn't spare any extra money, and my daughter told me that she had just bought a new house and couldn't afford to help either. She added that if she had the money, she would have given it to me without hesitation. But instead of offering support, they suggested that I sell my house to cover the cost of the surgery. I couldn't believe it. This house was my only asset. It was the place where I had raised my children, and where I had built my life. If I sold it, I would have nothing. I would be homeless. I couldn't bring myself to agree to their suggestion, and fortunately, a few kind friends helped me raise enough money for the surgery. I was lucky in that regard. But my children's lack of support left me deeply hurt. I had given so much of myself to them over the years. I sacrificed my time, my energy, my financial resources, all with the hope that one day they would be there for me. But when I needed them the most, they turned their backs on me. Their actions were a betrayal I could not ignore. The people who I thought would always have my back, my flesh and blood, had abandoned me in my time of need. At that moment, I realized I could never rely on anyone again, not even my children. From that day forward, I made a vow to myself. I would save every penny for the rest of my life, and I would rely solely on myself to secure my future. I could never trust anyone to have my back the way I had theirs. 5 years ago, after my surgery, I decided to leave my parents' 2-story house behind. The house had become old and uninhabitable, and it no longer made sense to keep it. I left it vacant, and as time passed, it became more of a burden than a blessing. However, a real estate developer saw potential in the property and decided to buy it. I received $35,000 in compensation, which seemed like a fortunate windfall at the time. But as soon as I had that money in hand, my children started visiting me more frequently. Their visits, however, were not out of genuine concern for me. They came with excuses, asking for money. They claimed it was for various reasons: help with bills, car repairs, and so on. Though their reasons seemed reasonable on the surface, I couldn't bring myself to lend them any money. Not after what they had done when I was in need. Part of me refused because of how they had treated me when I needed help. The other part of me knew that if I lent them money and they didn't repay me, I would have nothing left to secure my future. I had worked too hard for my savings, and I couldn't risk it all on their problems. I had no obligation to help them, especially when they had never shown me the same support in return. So, I refused them. And as the weeks passed, their visits became less frequent. I didn't feel guilty, but I couldn't help but wonder how things had gotten to this point. I had spent my life providing for them, and in return, they couldn't even help me in my time of need. It was a painful realization, but it was also one that made me stronger. I learned to rely on myself, and in doing so, I found a sense of independence I never expected to find. No matter what my children said, I firmly refused. I didn't feel like I had done anything wrong in standing my ground. I believed that my decision was the right one. I had worked hard for my independence, and I wasn't going to let them take advantage of me anymore. As time went on, my relationship with my children grew colder. They hardly ever called, and when they did visit, it was only for a brief time. Outsiders often assumed I didn't have children, but I didn't let that bother me. I had long since decided that as long as I had money, I could take care of myself. I didn't need them to be around. But as much as I tried to convince myself that I had done the right thing, life had a way of making me question my decisions. One day, I attended a party with a few old friends. We had a good time, and of course, I drank too much. I didn't realize how much until I started walking down the stairs and lost my balance. I slipped and fell from a few steps up. The fall wasn't just painful, it was catastrophic. At my age, even a small fall could cause serious damage, and this one did. I broke my back, and it was far worse than I could have imagined. By the time I was able to get to the hospital, I was in excruciating pain. During my hospital stay, I called both of my children, not asking them to pay for my medical bills, but simply hoping they would come visit me and maybe offer some comfort. But both of them refused. They said they were too busy with their lives, with work, with their families. I couldn't understand it. After everything I had done for them, this was the response I got? It hurt more than the physical pain of the injury. I had to ask my friends to help with all the hospital procedures because my children couldn't even spare a few hours to be there for me. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. At that moment, I was livid. How could they do this to me? After I had given everything to raise them, they couldn't even show up when I needed them most. After I was discharged from the hospital, a relative of mine helped me find a reputable nursing home with medical services. It seemed like the right choice at the time. The nursing home had everything I needed: nurses, healthcare staff, and decent living conditions. I thought it would be a good place to recover, a place where I could be cared for properly. But as soon as I moved in, I felt like just another number, another object to be dealt with. There was no warmth, no comfort. I couldn't speak up for myself. The atmosphere was heavy, and it didn't feel like a home. It felt more like a warehouse for the elderly. Many of the other residents had lost the ability to care for themselves, and it made me deeply frightened for what my future might hold. I realized that I didn't belong there. The worst part was seeing other elderly residents with their family members visiting regularly. Their rooms were filled with family, love, and conversation. Meanwhile, I was completely alone. No visits, no calls. Every time I saw other people enjoying the company of their children, I felt emptier than ever. It was crushing. After 2 years in the nursing home, I could no longer bear it. The loneliness and neglect were suffocating. I asked my friends to help me leave the nursing home and return home. I resumed my life in the comfort of my own home, with a caregiver helping me. At first, I thought having a caregiver would make life easier. I imagined someone there to assist with my daily needs, someone to ensure I was taken care of. But it quickly became clear that my caregiver didn't care for me the way I expected. She only did the bare minimum. When I needed help, she was often preoccupied with her affairs. She wasn't there to care for me, she was just doing her job, and it showed. Whenever I asked her for help, she would comply, but with an attitude. I began to feel that she didn't respect me. And I realized that part of her behavior was because she knew my relationship with my children was fractured. She knew there was no one to stand up for me, and she took advantage of that. She knew I was completely alone in this situation. Eventually, I asked my children to come home and help me resolve these issues with the caregiver. They showed up but only stayed for a few hours. They didn't help. They didn't even care. They told me I was being too sensitive and too picky about the situation. It was clear to me that they had no intention of being there for me. They had no understanding of what I was going through. They didn't see the need to show up for me when I needed them most. At that moment, I realized that I had made a mistake. The life I had fought for, the independence I had cherished, had left me isolated and unsupported in my later years. I had wanted to live without relying on anyone, but the truth was, I needed people. And without family, without the emotional support of loved ones, the comforts of independence meant little in the face of loneliness and neglect. As we wrap up this video, I want you to take a moment and reflect on what you've learned from this story. We've explored how important it is to build a solid foundation of emotional support in our lives, particularly as we grow older. We've seen the value of family, the risks of isolation, and the profound impact that relationships, both familial and personal, can have on our happiness and well-being. So, what has this story taught you? What is one thing you can take from it and apply in your own life? Maybe it's the importance of emotional connection over financial independence. Or perhaps it's the realization that relationships should be nurtured and not taken for granted. I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below with one thing you've learned from this video and how you plan to bring it into practice in your life. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave your comment. And please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more valuable insights. Your support means so much to us, and it helps us continue to create content that matters. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you in the comments.